have health and safety awareness, you know, to encourage and walking, sorry. But how do we, besides walking in groups, we are entitled to breaks, and sometimes you need to go out just by yourself. Groups are great, I encourage that too. But how do we protect ourselves besides what we can do, carry a can of mace? You know, there's those instances that will arise. How does the Sheriff's Department expect to help the employees?
Well, the Sheriff's Office will respond to any kind of concern the employees have. We typically respond to whether it's a report or a self-initiated activity to anywhere between 140 to 170 calls transient related per month in the North Auburn area. So we are very responsive to the needs of the community. We're responsive to the needs of fellow employees. We're all on one team. So I would just encourage you, you talk about personal safety, walk in groups, make sure that you have cell phone with you. I would encourage you to have pepper spray if you're walking in groups, if there's concerns about threats. Typically, if there's a call and it's not a 911 call, but you want to reach us, you can always reach us at the non-emergency number, which is 886-5375. That goes right to our dispatch center. Deputies will be there within a minute. Response time, if it's a priority call, they'll be there very quick. So our commitment to you is we're going to listen to the needs that come through David's direction, Sheriff Bonner's direction, and we'll be there for you to try to mitigate the problems as they present themselves.
So we can't expect you guys to be there on that. It would be too much to expect for you to be there the whole 8-hour shift that we're here. I understand that. But if you guys do walkthroughs or something so that you're visibly present, you are on campus, they see you, how can we implement something like that?
Are you talking about the entire DeWitt campus or the shelter? Well, we have to balance that with the needs of the community and the other calls for service that are going on throughout the North Auburn area that are life-threatening, et cetera. But the sheriff has committed to, and Captain Wu is committed to, assigning a full-time deputy on a grant position, and you might have seen him in the Auburn Journal lately. That's Deputy Zender. He's done a tremendous amount of good work here locally with the transient population and reducing some of the problems that present themselves not only to the employees here in Placer County, the residents, and the businesses of North Auburn. So we have engaged in a commitment to make sure that we're responsive to those needs. He is a full-time deputy working, daily with the individuals out there, and he does try to build a relationship with them because he finds that he gets better success in the long run by having a more personal relationship with them. So that's the best I can answer that question.
So I only have 2 more questions from the field here. Having worked at a county building on B Avenue and witnessing the multiple times per week that fire, paramedic, and sheriff personnel respond to the Welcome Center, my first question is, what kind of training and how well trained are the shelter staff? And then there was a second follow-on question for the same person. And for county staff who work for extended shifts at nights and on weekends, can we assume that the same rate of emergency response will occur during shelter hours since this is the same population?
Yes, you can expect that we're going to be calling for emergency services if somebody's having a seizure, heart attack, or other instance where they need medical care. We had over Christmas, we had one individual we needed to call for emergency services on, and it really was a life-saving call that was made. I'm assigning a 38-year veteran of one of our programs to be the lead supervisor of this program. He brings truly 38 years of working with law enforcement and public and emergency population in Sacramento. All of our staff have to be trained in CPR, emergency response to seizures. We'll have our first aid kits available for those little things. But for the most part, the staff will be properly able to call for support services when that is necessary. Can't predict how often that's going to be, but I do know that in many cases, if we can be taking care of preventative issues with many of the folks that will be darkening our door, that we will be impacting, we think, in a positive fashion, the emergency rooms. And I just can't predict how often we'll have to call for emergency service. It all depends on the health of the individuals, coming to our door. And also, I think it's important that before we ever open up operations, we're in that final week before we open up, end of April, that we all open this up for a tour so you can see exactly what it is we're talking about, where these people are going to go when they come in, so that you have a vision. Oops, sorry. I talk with my hands too much. You'll have a vision of what it is, how both stark and comfortable, if you can believe that, stark and comfortable. This was the barracks facility for the sheriffs for many, many years. And the fact that there's 2 courtyards, fenced-in courtyards, one for the women, one for the men, you're going to have a sense for how the shelter can operate. So you'll have a comfort level when you're thinking about what's going on at that shelter, that you will have experienced it yourself, at least a tour. I think that'll be very, very helpful.
Any other questions from anybody here? Okay, well, you're going to love this last question. It's simply, is there anything we can do to help? What a great way to end, huh?
Well, best way to help us is to communicate when there's problems. We're going to work closely with law enforcement. We think we're going to be a great asset for law enforcement, because, one of the toughest things for whether it's a police or sheriff deputy is encountering somebody. They say, you've got to get up and you've got to move. And they say, where do I move to? In this case, the sheriffs at least will have the opportunity to say, we've got to get you into the shelter. We're going to make a phone call. We're going to make sure that there's a bed for you, but we got to get you over there and get you sheltered. And for those situations, they're going to be very grateful for the shelter. And also, we're going to welcome them in to come and make sure that they're checking our roster for 290s and such, so that we're being, again, receptive to what we're hearing from the community and what our contract requires. So we're going to be great partners with law enforcement on this, again, working closely together.
Well, I guess wasn't the last. The other question is about you. I keep hearing 90-day, 90-day, 90-day temporary shelter. Yet you're dumping a boatload of money into this facility, according to watching the Board of Supervisors meetings. If after 90 days it doesn't work, and we say this isn't something for the county, this doesn't work at our campus, then it's my understanding that the county will be then paying for the cost of that remodel. So it looks like they're going to be there for a minimum of 5 years, because that's when we'll be out of, is that correct? Is that the 5 years is when the county will no longer have liability costs for
that just happens to be an agreement we came to with Right Hand Auburn in terms of reimbursing them for some of the costs associated with upgrading the building. Many of those costs we find will improve the building and make it more versatile for county use in the future, and so we think that that's not throwing good money after bad. The 5-year was really kind of the arrangement that Right Hand Auburn insisted on, that if there'd be some kind of reimbursement up to that point, and then the reimbursement falls away. It was said earlier, but I think it bears repeating. So the site access agreement, kind of the contract with Right Hand Auburn, who then turns around and contracts with Volunteers of America, is for a 90-day period of operation. So right around end of April, 1st of May, they will be prepared to open the doors and get into operation for 90 days. It would not surprise me or the board, for that matter, if during that 90-day period we received a request for an extension. The temporary use permit, which is kind of the zoning allowance for this type of use on this campus, is good for 1 year. So they could come back within that 90 days and could be granted an extension for up to a year. That's within the realm of possibilities, but there'll be, opportunities to learn in that 90-day period. One of the reasons the board was so adamant that we needed to have this every other week check-in was to make sure that we were actively monitoring what's going on, what are we learning, what are we thinking, how's it working, so that then if they do in fact receive that request for an extension, they have that information to draw upon. And then we'll just take it a step at a time. I don't think there's any sense on our board's part that this is a long-term solution. They clearly view this as a temporary emergency shelter for perhaps up to a year, and then we'll go from there, learning from the Marbit study and learning from this set of experiences. Very good. Well, I want to respect people's time before Dee Dee gets a chance to ask me another question. But for those who didn't get their questions asked and answered, please go to My Placer. Give us a couple of days. We've had here scribing all of the questions, all of the comments, so that we make sure that we got it right. We will post all of this information on the website. It's our commitment to be open with all of you, to give you frequent opportunities to ask your questions, make your comments, so that you feel informed and involved. In the future, if we want to do another one of these live and in person, we'll certainly make that arrangement as well. Because we value your input. We understand that this represents change, and we're going to do the best we know how to work with this experience and in this change among us. And I think we're planning for success. We always plan for success. So with your input, your active involvement, that'll help ensure that we do the best job we can. So thank you for being here this afternoon. Thank you for all of you who are listening in on the webcast, and we will stay in touch. Thank you.